Portrait Studio sale is going to be live on the 31st of May at 1 a.m. So make sure you're looking out for that. I'm going to be using Portrait Studio today. It's really cool because we have a zombie today as well, and that's going to be fun to look at, just to reiterate the theme that we're going to be going for in the challenge. And it's going to go on for 2 weeks from the 1st to the 14th of June. If you don't have Portrait Studio and the price is too high, it'll be 50% off for 2 weeks. One of the only sales of the year. So make sure you guys are waiting for that, looking out for that. I'll post a lot of videos and I'll post an announcement, so most likely you won't miss it. But if you can hold off on buying Portrait Studio, it's a bit expensive, just a little under $100 right now, and it'll be much less expensive in June. Let's get started. So for this piece, what I have a problem with is that you're trying to make her look attractive. I mean, I even had to censor her little vajayjay. You're trying to make her look attractive, but she's a zombie. She's falling apart. So it's like you're trying to make a piece of turd look like appetizing. It's not going to work. You're working with two extreme ends of the spectrum, where we have elf on one side. So where is this? You got elf on one side, and then you've got ogre on the other side. The far side of ogre, the far side, is going to be like absolute just zombie, like falling apart, like a dead person who's rotting, who's like 10 days rotted or so. Not even that, like 3 years rotted or something. I don't know, scary shit. And then you have on this side just like a really healthy, beautiful, high vitality character. And you got this and you got this, and you just bastardized the spectrum and brought them both together, and that's why it reads so off. Because there's no way in hell anyone is going to have, it's just necrophilia at this point. It's not going to work. Is that the right term, necrophilia? That's what you're dealing with right now. You can't do a corpse bride and actually go full corpse. You don't go, never mind. So make sure that you just decide on it. If it's going to be corpse bride, which is the Tim Burton corpse bride, she still had a very believable beauty. She had the curves, she had the boobs. Any of the major beauty factors weren't fucked with. She still had 2 boobs. She still had a pretty face. Her features were all intact. Still symmetrical. She did have the beauty factor, but that's Tim Burton. He likes to mess around with that stuff. And yeah, it is a bit necrophilia, but at least it was an intact character. So what you have here is, imagine seeing this person in the dark. You're a guy, perfectly straight male, and you're seeing this thing running at you. Trust me, you're not going to be turned on. It's just not the natural response, the human response to seeing some really, really skeletal, scary, large, what's the name of that Spanish? La Llorona or something. If you see her running at you, you're not going to be turned on. You're going to run away because it's scary. What I'm saying is there is no audience for this other than necrophilia. So I'm trying to be very, very honest here with what the themes you're trying to cross over and how they just don't work. It's just a fundamental. They just don't work unless you're going for a very specific message here. Okay? It can scare. And when we scare, we kind of don't give her a cute little, I'm leaning back, taking a selfie picture. We talked about villains. We talked about the importance of villains and how you really have to mess with the face. And one of the first things that happens to a dead face is that it gets really, really distorted. All right, so if she is a zombie, if she has been taken over by some kind of magical element, we really need to show that. And if her ribs are showing, if her ribs have come out, then, her face is pretty much sunken in. I would also tilt her head back. Also, you're designing her like she's like she's a what's that zombie game? That really scary zombie game with the witch that cries. Like, you're designing her like she's a character for a zombie game, which is great. But you have to, if you're gonna do a character design that's gonna be used in games, you really have to. Wait a second, what's going on here? You have to stop adding a background to your character design splash. It's just not going to work. Keep it gray. If it's supposed to be used by a 3D modeler to create the character you design, just keep it gray. So that's fixed. let's go into Portrait Studio and try to figure out, actually before that, I'm just going to fix some more stuff that we covered in Villain Designs. I'm going to get rid of the eyebrows. I'm going to give her a bold patch, because that's just what makes sense. She's dying. She's dead. She may have long hair, great, but she doesn't have extensions on. Now, that would be inappropriate. So I'm giving her any old age add-ons that might help. If she is glowing, if her eyes are glowing, then that should be the only glowing aspect. The waterline shouldn't glow. She's falling apart. The waterline is not vital and hydrated. All right, half the nose is in shadow. If you knew your forms, you'd know that. All right, so it's added a lot of distortion. We're carrying that shadow all the way down, a little cast shadow here, and we're done with the face. Just go for it. If you're gonna go for messed up, you have to go all the way. You can't do a little pretty face, because it looks unprofessional. It looks like you only drawn pretty faces for a long time, and you haven't developed the maturity that you need to have when you're drawing a scary character, especially a female, to just go for it. Go for the fear factor. Go for the ugly. It shows maturity in your design skills. It shows you're not scared of ugly. Beginners are usually very scared of ugly. It's one of the first things I notice. Beginners like to draw pretty things. Don't be that naive. If you're drawing something that is messed up, that is a zombie looking like that, walking toward you in a game, or it's supposed to entice fear, you have to go for it. You can't go for the beauty queen zombie. It just does not work. So I'm finding the right side of, or my right side of all of these little areas. And I'm just throwing the light in. Let's just take a look at the before and after. I like the long lankiness. I like the small head and the super long body. Really think about this stuff when you're doing your action scene illustration. I really don't know what to call it. But do you see how pretty she looks? Oopsie, I didn't save the whole changes. Good thing I worked on the same layer. Okay, so do you see these problems here? I'm just going to get rid of the eyebrows some more. And if you want to make her look desperate, go ahead and throw that upward movement in the eyebrows like that. She'll still look desperate, if desperate is what you were going for in year before. But she looks too pretty. She looks like a pretty YouTuber who did some Halloween makeup. Okay, if you want to make it look like the creature itself, the creature is in front of us, you got to go for it. Beginners draw pretty things. Write that back to me. And don't be distracted by the prettiness. Go for the fear if you're going to complete the character's design. In a portfolio, this is weak design. It gets looked over and passed. This is not. One other thing you can do is really mess with the snap neck. Go ahead and snap that all the way. The hair is good where it is. It shows that she was once beautiful, but not anymore. And I'm just going to hollow out her mouth a little bit more. Okay. Oopsie, we saw the vajayjay. Let's get rid of the vajayjay. Give her a good rub. And then let's try to find another pose. So I'm going to bring the camera this way. So a zombie, what we all really like to do is make it so that the zombie is moving with its torso. It's asymmetrical. And the head is just there for the ride. So it's kind of snapped, so I'm really going to snap it. I'm going to use the Portrait Studio kind of like strength, and I'm just going to snap it. Maybe I'm going to twist the head a little bit as well. I'm also going to shrink it like you want it. Maybe it's shriveled up, you know, like a shrunken head. And what happens with the arms is that they kind of dislocate. So you have a lower joint, or else she'll look too athletic. And what does athletic mean? Can anyone answer that question? So I'm deliberately lowering it in the socket. Sometimes the upper body is twisted one direction while the neck is twisted in another direction. And the body here is twisted. Oopsie. The body here is twisted this way. Okay, so it's kind of moving forward just with a couple of legs. And then what are you doing here? Both legs are on the same level. So she kind of looks like she just stopped walking. For us to really feel like she's a zombie and work with the universal read of a zombie, we really want to show that it looks like a baby that just started walking. So knees in, you kind of have that, but I would make them a little bit more. Right, and I'm really making the arms. Athletic means healthy, exactly. And the arms are kind of just like swinging nearby. So one can be this way, one can be that way. And you see how I'm like raising this hip? So because I raise this hip itself goes up. And I'm going to make it look like the legs are way ahead of their joint. Let me rotate. See how I've dislocated the leg? And it's reading so dynamic from that side, and then I'm just going to step that leg forward. I'm just rotating. Okay, and then one thing I'm going to do is just elongate the body. And then the legs kind of snap even more forward just a little bit, just to show that, and this is really relative to the brief that I just read. Okay, and then another thing is the legs. Again, it looks like a baby that just learned how to walk. The legs are kind of tilting inward. Every major kind of thing that stabilizes a human body, you're really fucking with it so that you get the most out of that. And again, the same thing, we're tilting this inward, snapping that joint so it looks really messed up. And if you want, you can tilt both legs out just to have that same width and awkwardness. It still has to look like the feet are positioned. The thing is with zombies as a concept is really ridiculous to me because they're literally falling apart, but they're supposed to be super fast. So zombies, like when I have a nightmare about zombies, which I do, I just, it makes no sense. I'm in the dream saying, why the hell can't I outrun you? You're literally a corpse. Because I'm just, my rational thinking and my phobias both are at odds with each other. And then I, end up asking questions like that. A little look into my psyche. There you go. So I'm tilting that part of the body forward and I'm tilting this back to make it seem like that hip is high because hips move down as we walk, depending on which leg is leading. And I'm tilting this more. Okay, so we're rotating. Cool twists here and there. What I would do is really snap that head back and twist it a bit more. And kind of when we, like even now when you raise your heads, it kind of just gets tucked behind. Just like that. Kind of just locks right into place. Doesn't really work. So because Portrait Studio Model can't do everything, what I'm going to try to do in my edit is completely sink in these little shoulder areas. This area we can't adjust it yet. So I would completely get rid of that. And then we just have a bit more fucked up body looking. Here it just looks like a healthy person trying to look scary. Where here it looks like actual dislocation, actual like messed up joints, rotting, the functional body is no longer functional. Okay, and you can mess around with the tendons in the arms. You can make it so that the hands are a little bit more twitchy or really messed up. You can twist the hand back all the way just to show that it's stiff like a cadaver. This is all so gruesome. But this is the kind of stuff we mess with. That leg is a little bit forward for my taste, but I would adjust it. This is a very muscular, healthy mannequin. She's an athlete, so I would get rid of this outward shape in the musculature, and I would obviously add in a more skeletal, thin body type. And when it comes to zombies, you really just, it's just a leveled camera sometimes when they're just slowly walking towards you, but the torso facing one direction, the head facing another, we're deliberately messing up with the natural order of the body's function. I would really tuck that arm right in to show that the leg, see how it feels like the hip is leading? See how it feels like the body is leaning forward? And this is just for a zombie that isn't, leaning forward. This is just for the ones leaning backward. So with the spine snapped all the way. And you can go ahead and do that as well. That looks more interesting. If you wanted to have a scary interaction with the viewer, you can go ahead and tilt that head inward. Make it mess around with the light like it just tilted its head for the first time and looked at the viewer, or looked at the whoever the character is. Maybe it looked at them like that. But I really just like it when it's kind of tilted. Just adds that last little bit of disrespect to the natural, beautiful neckline of a female. So you can see she was once beautiful, and I think that's the scariest thing about zombies, especially with The Walking Dead. I watched the first episode of The Walking Dead and then I stopped. I couldn't handle it. Just seeing people that they once knew like look like that, it really messed with me. So these are the kind of edits I'm going to be trying to apply, but it's nice when you see the actual full figure in front of you doing that. And just look, you have a perfectly healthy neckline, just looks like a girl leaning back. You really have both arms doing the same thing, which is cool. I like that the arms are behind. They're completely dysfunctional. They look like they don't work at all. But you've got both legs on the same kind of line. So I would put one leg behind, and then I would just get rid of that. Maybe I shouldn't try. Maybe I shouldn't try to edit this because the lasso is going to be impossible to capture. Yeah. I know you're trying to build an environment, but what kind of environment are you building if all you have is a light? Did she walk into a studio for a photo shoot? What is this? Just keep it nice and clean and gray so that it can be a functional design. No more silly little overly decorated backdrops. It's a very simple backdrop for character design. It's clean for a portfolio, and it's all you really need. And I'm just going to put in the effort here. Oops. La Llorona, right? Is that right? I don't know. Keeps coming and going. So it's, you know, God bless you. You really wanted to make her look messed up. You raised her little... She's walking on her toes. It doesn't make much sense for her to be walking on her toes. If you really want to mess with her form, you want to make her look like she rotted and then was reanimated. You got to make it look like it was just in time, right before she was completely useless. So the necromancer is, you know, he's just choosing whoever can walk. Who can still walk, right? And then we've got the shadow. So I'm going to try to save this. Give a nice clean background so we can focus on the character. Okay, who is now separate from the background? Oopsie, that's fine. And we're just gonna make these adjustments. So a nice light background is just clean enough so that you can develop some cylinders. So look what you did. Let's assess this. You have a bounce light here, which is completely messing up the rotation of this cylinder. And then you have a shadow on the edge here. You're still outlining. You really didn't respect this massive floodlight that you had there anyway. So why did you even have it? Okay, so maybe the skin is more clammy, so we're throwing in a really believable light here. If it's a darker skin, just leave it to the value it was before. Just get rid of that edge light if the light is coming from that direction. Same thing with this side. Why do you have a shadow on the half of the thigh that is technically supposed to be in? You're outlining. Are you aware that you're outlining? The rib cage, the top of the breast are all outlined. Even though you indicated the light, you made sure everybody knew the light was coming from the top. These are basic form study problems you could fix with the form study regimen. 2 in the morning, 2 at night, with food. Okay, and one thing you can do is really mess with the hair. Make it look more scraggly. Make it look more messed up. Give us some relief, because we're really losing this this shape. And then I'm just gonna unlock and try to recreate what we did on Portrait Studio. Oopsie. So I'm just going to take a picture of this. Choose a better angle for the camera. Let's try to recreate what you did with the arms. The thing is, I can't completely recreate what you did, but it's enough that we can see some kind of referencing for the stomach, chest area. And you see how your breasts, the ones that you're drawing, are always facing, you'll notice this in other ones too, you're always drawing breasts that are facing forward towards the camera. Even if it's not supposed to be. Look from the side, the body is twisted up, the breasts and the torso is looking up. But you're still facing that chest forward. Why? Because in your brain you have a symbol there for breasts and it looks like this. It's very elementary, especially if you're a guy. And they're just always facing the camera so conveniently. And that's why you drew these. Even though typically this whole torso should be leaning backward, the breast should be up. I mean, by then her breast should have deflated. She's been rotting. She doesn't have much water. A deflated breast, again, reminds us of old age. All our breasts will sag one day. So I'm just dragging this down, but I'm also lifting up the torso. And I'm using this torso line here. See that? Looks like the torso's been thrown all the way up. And I'm going to do this little twist. I'm going to try to do the twisting of the neck. I'm going to throw the face up a little bit. Let's go back here. And I'm just going to completely... See that? Like just completely throwing the body down. Shoulders are down. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Completely collapsed. And these arms don't look like they're swinging at all. And this hip, okay, I guess this is the leading hip. So this hip goes up. This hip goes down. But we still have to show the rotation of the torso. Which direction is the stomach facing? I guess we can change it for yours. Your belly button looks like it's just a black hole. It doesn't look like a belly button. You need to look up a reference. When you enter this kind of guesswork, this guess game with anatomy, just look up the reference. We're going to have a larger thigh gap because she's deflated. Okay, and then we're tilting that knee inward. Need old Melisandre boobs, please. Yep, you got it. It'll work. It'll freak you out. It needs to be something that if a college frat boy saw in the forest, he would not be, hey baby, he would be like, oh my god, and he'd just run away. Alright, so these nice old boobies, I mean, they can flail around with the arms. You can do whatever you want, just as long as they look like gravity is dragging them puppies down, okay? I would make them small, just to show that she died young, not died old. Okay, and then again, we're leading with one hip. That hip is there, and then some of these edits I won't be able to do without a cut and paste technique. So I'm grabbing this leg. Son of a bitch. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just let me live, Photoshop? Bitch. And I'm throwing this back to make it look like that leg is behind in the walk cycle. And that's why this leg is low. This hip is low. Okay, and you can do a little bit more. So what did we do here with the knees? We locked them in. The feet were facing the other direction. So I'll probably have to use Liquify for this. And then we'll see one big before and after change. And you see how these tiny little edits here and there are affecting the bigger picture. It looks like a rotting corpse that was reanimated. It looks more mature. As a designer, you look more mature when you're not scared to make shit look nasty and crazy, as it needs to be. Because if somebody hired you for a movie and you made all of the characters look like I don't know, Halloween costumes on Instagram or models or something, you're gonna get fired. Okay, there's all these other cool shit you can do with joints. You can mess them up, you can have them collapsed, you can do all kinds of stuff. So this leg, it's the leading leg, but I'm still not going to give it all that vitality. I'm going to cut it and just lean it forward a little bit. Really not sure how we'll do this without redrawing the foot. Nah. And then this knee, I'm going to completely make this knee face almost sideways. And there's that twisting, sort of. And we can really snap that neck back a little bit more. I would get rid of this hair, but you can keep it if you want to show that movement down. I'm going to shave off that part of her head that's missing hair instead of giving her that volume. Thin that down. Another old age signature we're using to create something scary. Older people have thinner hair. You can keep it a big long body of hair if she's like a hair elemental, or you can just make it scraggly and messed up. The open mouth, again, I've told you guys before about a wide mouth. It looks scary because if you guys have ever seen that Spider-Man remake with the goblin, not goblin, with Dr. Octopus. No, fuck, no, the other one. The God, there's so many animals. With the, God damn it, what's his name? What is it? A lizard. He turns into a crocodile. He's got this wide ass mouth that just makes him look so uncanny. So if this is the danger factor, what we're doing is we're illuminating this and recentering our focal point to aim also at the teeth. If she's smiling, it does make it look a bit scary that she's smiling, to be honest. You can expand on that, literally expand the smile. Or you can make her a little less horrifying, but let's stick to horrifying because it's definitely working. Okay, Venom? No, not Venom. What's his name? The crocodile boy. The professor that became a crocodile because he was experimenting with stuff. And then we've got the light source. So I would make a little bit more brightness. If you want to make the background darker, feel free. Just as long as you remember that it doesn't mean that we have to make the environment out of that plain background. Make it a little bit darker so you have some value to grow, so that we can make these look as realistically sagging as possible by bringing in that core shadow. You need to show where this bone structure is jutting out of the chest bone. Again, we need a light source for this, a solid light source. I'm zooming all the way out because it really helps me see where all the missing core shadows and the highlights are. And I just throw these massive brush strokes over top to make sure I'm capturing the most important volume markers, let's call them. The stuff that really reads. It's the stuff that reads from a distance. Write that back. Alright, so there's another core shadow missing there. And while you're painting, please stop worrying about bounce light. Get those goddamn core shadows down because they're the most elusive. They will make it or break your painting. And if you're constantly drawing so that you can have that cool little bounce light, featured in your work to make you look a little bit more professional, trust me, we can tell when there is a kind of like a misrepresented light source or bounce. I mean, she's not really in that kind of environment at the moment. That bounce light will only make you, it's like overdoing textures and looking ridiculous while you're over texturing your work. It's the same thing overusing that bounce light. We need a rib cage here jutting out, but I'm going to add the rib cage for it first. And I'm going to get rid of the stomach black hole. I'm going to carry that shadow all the way up, trying to find wherever the light can reach on the stomach. We still need human anatomy for it to look like a human scary zombie. We need to be scared because it needs to look like a human. Flip the canvas. Areas where the light is reaching. And it's a very hollowed out stomach cavity. So there's, you know, there's actually drawing guts and making a zombie because, oh, you drew guts. Oh my gosh. And then there's doing the real work, which is messing around with the mechanics of the body so that it really does look like a reanimated corpse that can't function very well. Actually sitting there and looking up medical, you know, limitations of a certain joint break or something like that. How do people walk when their legs aren't working? Look that up. That's a real artist there. That's someone who's investing a lot of realism in their work. Look up a limp. Look up how someone walks when one leg is longer than the other. Look up, you know, all that important stuff that really makes the mechanics and the biology believable. Instead of just drawing some guts and saggy boobs. So these long moving shadows that I'm adding here are helping create the cylinders and complete the legs. These legs look really, really full, these thighs, because you're still trying to attract your viewer. Stop doing that. Completely just hollow them out. And that way you see more of the arms in the back. I'm going to try to make the stomach look more sunken in. So they actually look like an anorexic person. It's not a mocking factor, it's a very sad thing, but we use it as a reference when we're trying to draw characters that really are missing a lot of their body weight. Again, it's being able to reference like a master. Look up everything in its functional field of, you know, reference. So it looks like they have enough muscles to run after you and catch you and eat you alive, but just enough that they are falling apart, and that's why they're so desperate to catch you and eat you. Okay, and then I would just darken her general body, and I'd go back and reuse wherever I feel like I need value. So darken along the sides of all major cylinders. Oops. Yep, all major cylinders, and then trying to capture that size in the legs here. And then I'll go back and figure out that stomach. So the light's coming from this way. And that whole area is hollowed out. We have this little belly button area, very little fat hanging off. We have that little area above the crotch that has a bit of fat. And then we've got the belly button. We've got that fat moving all the way down. And then some light coming from the side. That should hold us for now until we get a good reference. Okay, so a little bit more messed up. Less shadow on the breast, generally lit area. Less shadow up there. More shadow down here for wherever things got kind of sunk in. And I'm just blocking in general stuff over here. Top part of the hip, top part of this hip. Moving down, and then the crotch area. Sitting in between. Couple shadows. Bit of a shadow there. And if you want to draw a dried up little vajayjong, go ahead. It'll add to that if you want to go gore, you know, like what is it called? Hereditary level. Nasty. God, that final scene in Hereditary was horrifying. Maybe no stomach fat. Okay, so let's see where you were before. Keep doing that. Flatten. Just a bit more. Gesture-based changes. Before. Oh. Oh, 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 I need to hide the jong. Alright, the jong. Go away. And then after. Before. Oh, no. Why is the face different? Before. Oh, right. Right. After. Now I can hide the vajong. I mean, you guys have all seen it, so. Before. Okay, so you see that kind of swing in the hair. You can do the same thing, swing the hands that way. Elongate them if you want to. I recommend you don't mess with the positioning of this arm, because you're interrupting what's happening with the legs. But if you have to, go ahead, add that other arm in there. Make this other arm swing that way. Okay, make sure we're having these steps here to make it look like it's in the distance. Throw in that fake atmospheric perspective if you want to. Right, so before, a little bit more, so much beauty in the top part, and then with that body, it makes you cringe. Either go for it, or don't do it. Just go for the pretty zombie princess, World of the Dead princess girl. Just stop trying to overlap or make a turd look like it's a culinary masterpiece. That's not going to happen. They are the antithesis of each other. Maybe in a twisted world they will be united and beauty will be related to death, but no. Okay? So a little bit there. Let's move on to something a little bit more jovial. Is that the right word? A little bit less scary and depression-inducing. A heroic, elderly general of types. I didn't read the story. Very, very quick fix for this. The sunlight is behind her. I love the blur in the environment. God damn. Beautiful character. I love her expression. A little bit of 3D, three-quarter view problems with your volume. I'll fix that. But let us make edits according just on the background. So we're trying to make it look like the light environment is sunset. The best way to make this character the hero that she is, this heroic female, is to illuminate the background and silhouette her. So I'm going to be here for a little while, just cleaning these up. So looking forward to looking at this piece because I love silhouettes. And in illustrations, you can't go full silhouette. You can't go crazy with that, because what that will do is it will obviously expect you to blacken out your character completely. But just look at what happened when we just made the background a little bit brighter and silhouetted her. And this is the power of respecting your light source. The light source will always make every decision. Doesn't matter how much little details you added on the armor. She stays dark, the background stays light. Now it just looks like a photograph. You can see before it was all dim. Where was all that shine coming from in the armor? Either dullify everything. If the sun has just set, go for it, but the sun has not yet set. There is still hope for the kingdom. And that's why we're doing this, because there is still hope. Get it? It's right. I'm a creative writer extraordinaire. Thank God I only do art and not write professionally. Alright. Okay, so we have that background much brighter, and if you want, go for the hero glare, go for that brightness, and guess what? You can darken her even more. Damn! And when you darken her even more, what do you get to do? You get those flaring, flying, flyaway hairs that are just so much fun to paint. Having so much fun with this silhouette here, and it lets you distort the hairline, so Lets you see a bit more than what you usually do. Gonna darken the background just an insy wincy bit, just so we get that hairline to show. It's still much brighter than it was before. And I'm going to, where are you? Dodge tool the sides. It's gonna look really wrong because I have to bring in the right color. And there's gonna be a little bit of brightness just there on the little hairs. A lot on these hairs. I'm gonna bring in the right color. Okay, and then all that detail you put work into, now it has a proportionate amount of, you know, relevance. It's not just high detail for no reason. There is still a sun above. It's not that bad. It's not that dark. It's still just enough that we can see all that detail. And there's all that brightness and orangeness in her hair getting caught in the light. And the sunlight kind of in it, because I believe she was a redhead before. Oh, I don't have her before. I'm going to merge that down. Sponge tool down. Okay. Then I'm going to get my brush, soft brush, and just darken. Then dodge tool. Now that I have a good base color, dodge tool should do a little bit more work. There we go. And it just, the darker you make her, the more dramatic it will be, because it'll just look better and better and better the more you darken her and keeping the hair bright. It'll just keep looking better and better and better. And there's that glare behind her. There's just that little bit of light shining on the armor, just there, off the shadow. There's a little bit of that. And then you just gotta cool her down a little bit. She looks really angry. You gotta give her a chill pill. So lame. So color layer, complete blue. We're gonna adjust that blue on the. Chose the wrong one. So anything that is obviously not in the light source gets that little bit of blue. I think my brush locked. And then I'm just bringing that down so that we are making everything just a touch cool, running through a film of blue. And again, going back and erasing blue wherever we have illumination. And this is if you want to do what I'm doing. And this is if you want to make it a silhouette, which I think is phenomenal, is amazing. And towards the lower edges of the canvas, we need to see some sand movement because that's a lot of wind. She's in a desert kind of environment, so there should be some kind of diffusion of contrast because the fine layer of sand towards the lower half. She looks like a really important character. And now that we have more light in the environment, we can afford to throw in a little, here, let me flatten the whole image. We can afford to throw in a little glare or two. This is too much strength. Just coming off whatever nearby light is diffusing around. And then for that 3/4 view problem, the mouth, if we were to look at her from where your proportions are right now, from front view, her mouth would be here, her nose would be here, her eyes would be here. No. It's not an expression. It's straight up where her mouth is and her skeletal structure. You're adjusting the mouth to accommodate to the camera, and that's not how you do it. You just let the rotation happen. Grabbing this whole mouth, shifting over, and then correcting the tilt. Okay. If she has an expression, do it after. Don't make the expression destroy your rotation, because there's only one thing you can depend on. I'm going to make her a little bit older, and I made her older by moving the mouth away from the nose. There's one thing you depend on when doing a 3/4 view, and that's rotation. Another thing not really making her look as old as she needs to is this forced eye socket. The older the character, the more saggy the eye socket. She can still look exceptionally beautiful, just without that weird awkward eye socket you were forcing. You can leave some of that as the leftover of the wrinkle. Okay, and then for every hill there is a valley. So we are creating a nice shadow. Any questions at all about any of the changes we made today? Any questions about the challenge? If you do have questions, at Istebrak me, please. Oh, what even? I didn't mod you. I'm so sorry. That's okay. People have been... I'm just going to leave you modded. People have been pretty behaved. And because we're in shadow, we really have to go for these eye sockets. They are what make everything read. And I'm just going to lower this eye socket manually here. Okay. Skin doesn't really glow. It doesn't really do the subsurface. I mean, the nose possibly. See how you're forcing the front view of the nostril? Again, from front view, the nostrils are doing this. You're accommodating everything for the 3/4 view, even though the eyes are in place. Now stop doing that. Nostril is just sometimes not visible. Period. Let it go. This is part of what makes a mature artist. Just being able to just let the rotation do whatever it needs to do in order to be complete. And based off the structure of her nose, we really wouldn't see, we would probably see just a small amount of the far nostril. A tiny little sliver of it. Hardly anything. And still, she's old. She shouldn't have a 20-year-old nostril. Her nose has little to no volume in the outward movement of the bridge. And an old nose is lower. Good job on the eyebrows. I'm going to make them sag just a touch. No excessive size in the brow bone, but you can have a low sag to the fat of the brow. Good job on these jowls, I guess they're called. She still looks stern. And there's just so much more you can do with this. There's so much more, really, that you can go for that full burn. No. Maybe if you want. It's not good to photograph the camera. I mean, the light source. You can go for that more extreme light in the hair. Just on the outer edges. So don't mind the white here. Maybe I can just use a hard round to pull this off. Maybe not. Okay, so just squint your eyes. Forget the fact that I'm doing it roughly. Squint your eyes and just look at the effect around the whole piece. It looks more accurate, maybe a little more desaturation, because her hair technically isn't red, but it has redness in it. We can go for a little bit more than that, but I'm going to leave it where we left off. Okay, so a little bit more of an accurate light source environment. I think we would have some more glow behind her. So that's going to be an easy fix. It's just a little bit of extra brightness. Because that background was blurry anyway. There was nothing going on there of significant storytelling value. It was just there to complete the space, right? So let it do what it does best, which is represent the light source. You see how it's just so much more appealing. You have things kind of getting a little bit flat towards here. It's only after I flipped it did I notice. Flipped it zooming out anyway. So I'm allowing a little bit more volume, maybe of her stance, of her legs, to move forward a bit. The way your fabric is folding feels like it's not falling on any dense object. The fabric is just collapsing. So try to give a little bit more structure to the fabric, or the spaces under the fabric. Make all the fabric move along with the armor underneath it. So have more complete curves and arches to the folds of the fabric. The symmetry of the chest piece here is off. You have a lot of 3/4 view problems, buddy. And you need to start sketching some diagrams, sketching some rotated cubes. Try to find the symmetry line. Track it down. You don't respect your symmetry line enough. Track that symmetry line down because there's so many areas here. The mouth, the nose, the eye sockets were all asymmetrical in 3/4 view. Asymmetry doesn't go out the window in 3/4 view. It becomes even more tested, even more important and prevalent. The glare here is a bit lame. Let me just correct that. Darken. Just the hairier bits. You know where we get mustaches as women? This is really where we would have more of that glare. Okay. And you can make some of that brightness catch the sand. The sand can get a bit extra brightness. It's just a little bit, like the smallest little body of sand gets a little bit of glare around her. Just take a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? One thing you can do is go Disney, which is really, really cool. It kind of will make her look like a villain or someone with a dark path ahead, which is darken the face. And if anybody can guess where this is from, where in the Disney movie was this done? A darkened face, but and an old lady, but really bright whites in the eyes, also green. Who can guess which Disney movie that was used in? I love that. I love that trick. I've always loved it. It stuck with me since I saw it as a kid. See that? Where was this done before? Cinderella? My voice cracked. So this is cool. Makes her look a little bit more dark, less heroic. Cinderella mother, yeah, Ahsant Ahmed. Okay, so you have that, or you have this, which is less of a dark path, or this. Oops. Which is more of a dark path. Let's take a look. Beautiful piece. I have so much fun with shit like this. So before, I like the after, but I don't know the story. Right, so I wouldn't be able to tell, but let's just keep the after that we had before. You have put in this annoying little border, maybe it was me, I don't know, around the sky that you just did not need. Let the sky be a sky. It's light up there. Don't put a border. There isn't a little floaty border surrounding her when she walks in her day-to-day life. So if you want things to look realistic, do what's in day-to-day life, which is sometimes an edge just happens. Sometimes a border is not there. So before, zoom up. Right, look at the mouth, look at the eyes, that awkward kind of swollen allergy reaction eye socket. The unusual, like a folding in the clothing. The dark scene, the background is darker than the character. After, more of a believable environment. And it's like her expression got angry. It's like she looked silly before with her mouth on one side, because that's what happens to our mouth when we make silly faces. We exit the symmetry line. And after. I have a little one of these here. Yeah. Or a really big one. Let's take a look at that. Mm-hmm. A big old glare. Look at that. Like a flood. There can be a vignette. No, it looks tacky. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I had a VHS movie of that Cinderella. I watched it a lot of times. Problem is that it was in Germany. That's why I've been in animation experience for so long. Gave it a Game of Thrones vibe. Any questions at all? Please at Istebrak me if you do have any. None. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you everyone for coming. Please don't forget about the challenge that will be submitted soon on the Reddit page. If you want to submit art for critique go to Reddit. Go to istebrak.com and click on the little Reddit icon. Join. Make sure you follow the rules. If you want to join us on Patreon, please do. It supports the class, but you'll have time to work on your homework if you join soon. There is another community challenge being hosted through the Apprentice Discord. Portrait Studio is going to be on sale in June for 14 days. If you guys don't have Portrait Studio and you would like it, you saw it in action today, you can wait for the sale in June and you will be able to get it at almost 50% off. And that's it. I really had a lot of fun with this piece. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you guys Tuesday the 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye guys.